Hello, this is the contest. Fantasy Footy Show where we watch a State of Origin game with no Queensland representation. I'm Jesse.
Woo!
I like Redraft. K-Man is Jill Houtwin, away your host. We like Fantasy Footy. You can follow K-Man on Twitter at K-Man_TZ Fantasy. You can follow me on Twitter at Contest Fantasy. Mate, how you doing? Good to see you.
You too. I've got to confess this. My wife is on all fours at the moment. Trying to get out of the room so she's not seen on camera. That is brilliant. Thank you, my love. That's amazing.
I was looking at the run sheet, so I didn't even see. Did she enter the room that way?
She was already in. Oh, that's gold. Hey. You probably hear her laughing in the back. State of Origin. What did you think?
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
Okay, no, I liked it. It was a fun game. It was actually pretty close. I was surprised at how well WA kept up with Vic, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm a Queenslander. There was no Queensland team. What do I care? Having said that, if Queensland fielded a team, I think we would get absolutely rinsed by just about every other state in the country. So there is that.
So interesting you should say that, because obviously there's a bit of aftermath chat about whether this is going to continue, and the AFL is adamant this is going to continue. And I just saw some numbers today about how many Tasmania, Queensland, and New South Wales players there are, and I think there's 120. And they were comparing it to Victoria, which is, 500 and something. So, look, I really liked the spectacle. I don't know if you saw, was it Gawn to Bont to Dacos to Butters inside 50? I just thought, how good is it just seeing all these quality players? It's just the scheduling is all wrong.
Terrible. It was very fun. Like, something that you noticed almost from that first ball up was just, these are the best players in their respective states playing, because the smoothness of the ball movement was electric. The pace with which the ball moved was really, really exciting. Those opening couple of goals to WA were fantastic. So I did have a good time watching it. Yeah. But I agree with you. The timing's not. It's not it, is it? I mean, Jacob Wiedering going down, you got to be pretty upset if you're a Carlton supporter, I would imagine. I wonder what Michael Voss thinks privately about the whole
There might be a few expletives. Well, you know what? AFL came out today and said he is actually a chance for round 0. They think he could.
Yeah, right.
And I guess
do we know what his actual injury is? What is
know.
Is it a concussion? Is it like a shoulder issue?
Yeah, no idea.
Not sure.
But apparently he's a lot better than what their original fears were. But Archie, new club, Dunahammy.
Yeah.
Taylor,
he's been known to.
Yeah, that's true. Raul with a finger. But look, I'd like it to stay. But I don't know. Raul, his second quarter, was it the second quarter or third quarter? He was just killing it. I thought, how good
switched on. Yeah. What do you reckon about Nick Dacos not being Bob? That's a topic of discussion, isn't it?
Yeah. Wasn't Ash even surprised to get the award?
I think so. Yeah. Well, he would be, wouldn't he? Yeah. Can I tell you what my mate said about State of Origin? So he said, like a day before the game, he said Victoria is going to absolutely smash WA, and I said going to be a drubbing, and they kept up. And then the day after the game, he said, I got bored after like the first quarter, caught up on maths instead.
Maths. Oh.
I thought that's a choice. Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. State of Origin. Well, it looks like it's here to stay though. So I think we'll have to strap in, get used to it. When do you think's the ideal scheduling? Would you say the week before the granny, excluding players from the granny?
Mid-season? I want to see those players. So I guess we come from a Queensland perspective where it's in May, it's in the sweet spot. So you have this lead up, players get selected, players are in form, they're hardened, and then we just have this week where there's 3 State of Origins, and clubs just have to cope to fill injuries, to fill players who are doing Origin service. Whether that's the period of a 2-week bye where everyone is off, I don't know, but I just think that would be the sweet spot mid-season to see 2 states just have a crack at each other with no repercussions.
Yeah. Could everyone share one bye? Could everyone just share one bye? Then we have no weeks where anyone really misses their team. One bye, like you suggest, have the origin. That'd be all right. How would you feel if Hugh McCluggage did an ACL in that game?
Wow. well, again, I guess that's something we're used to, right? If Jonathan Thurston went down and broke his leg, well, that's his season done.
That's true.
That was it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something we are used to is watching rugby league.
Yeah. I'm just a whinger. If you dig the content, everyone, give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple. Like and subscribe, share all that stuff over on YouTube. We got a great show lined up for you today. Something very exciting. I know K-Man has been
I'm excited.
Greatly looking forward to it. He's very excited. What did you say? 4.5 hours of research on the weekend straight?
Just flat out, strapped in, coffee in hand, and just went at it. And the synthesis of this probably has just affirmed my last 2 seasons in AFL fantasy. And if you don't mind, mate, I might kick it off with a bit of a story time with K-Man, if I can set the scene, because I think rookies and the way we structure our starting sides is really important. And from round 0 to 5, if we don't get those rookies right, the balance of rookies, it can really derail the start of your season, and suddenly you're playing catch up. So these are some learnings from 2023. I want to take you back to my couch. I think it was a Thursday night. 5 minutes to go on the clock. I had to make a decision. I had 2 options with my starting side. It was either going to be Nick Dacos, who in the lead-up games was a tag threat. He got heavily tagged in a pracky match, and then all of a sudden we were thinking, well, maybe Nick Dacos, this is the year where he gets nullified. And there was Kai Chandler from Melbourne, a basement price rookie. He was picked 15 in the 2019 draft, so he had a couple of years under his belt, but relatively unknown. And my other option was Tom Stewart and a 2022 National Draft rookie. I just can't remember his name, and I can't find my old starting side photos, but I paid up for him, higher price tag, fresh out of the draft, and that was my option that I went with. So I changed Dacos out. Chandler was gone. I brought that in. Tom Stewart proceeds to get a 14 and is injured. Hence, he's on my never again list.
Yep.
As he does. And the rookie didn't do so well either. Now, Dacos goes out with a 114. And Chandler, with a couple of years training in the AFL system, got 105. And the implications for the rest of that AFL season was that I ranked, by the end of 2023, 14,500. So my key learning was I needed to do more research into these older rookies who had been in the system rather than just picking all of these first-year players. So the next year, I tried a different philosophy of those older players, and if it wasn't for Callum Mills's 2, which again stripped me that season, finishing 5,000th. So I crawled my way to 5,000. But last year, after 4 rounds, I had Hall, Bice, Davidson, Xavier Lindsay. And by round 8, I was sitting 232 and obviously finished 58th and got the hat. So I just can't stress enough getting these rookies right. And I think there's a bit more to it than picking these first-year players.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you've been kind of spruiking this idea for a couple of years now, I think, or not even spruiking, but you've been saying to me, I just think there's something in these older rookies. I think there's something in these guys who have a little bit more time under their belt, a little bit more experience, a little bit more wisdom. And if I do say so, I still remember you telling me this story last preseason and the trauma that it clearly has left you with. Watching that 14 contrasted against that 114 from Nick Dacos. So I'm really sorry that you've carried this weight with you all this time, mate.
That's the great thing about fantasy is each year we take something away and we add that nuance to the start of our season just with our research and our starting side. So it's definitely put me in a position where I think I'm a better coach. It's just those things you go through.
Is Millsy also on your never again list? Is he equally with Tom Stewart?
Yeah. They're gone. Absolutely. They're done.
What I really want to see happen this year is it's like round 18, 19, or 20, and who's killing it? Tom Stewart and Callum Mills.
Yeah,
and we have to have a discussion of, Jesse, it's trade therapy. I got to bring one in.
We're going to bring it out. So let's go back to these rookies and let's rattle off our purpose. So, and I guess to start off with, I'm really classifying these rookie as our first and second year players, or even a third year player who's finally cracked it into a starting side and relatively cheap. So with this year's price points between 230K, 350 to 380. So it's that price bracket. And we all know that if our rookies are scoring and they're playing each week, their accelerated cash generation cadence can happen really quickly. And I refer to Riley Bice. So last year from round 2 to round 8, he made 420K. So for those who made the bold call before his buy to latch on, they reap the rewards later on. And it's those starting sides which dictate our team structure under a salary cap. And if we have the balance right, then that enables us to fit in our premiums, our underpriced premiums, like I guess this year, your Rosie, perhaps Caldwell, even a Sheasel. And they also provide that on-field scoring when needed. So in our case, it's going to be the early season buys that we play on field, the rookies we have on field, and their ability to perhaps cover during mid-season buys as well. So that's the balance. That's the purpose of quick generation. It enables team structure. It enables you to spread your cash to get that balance right between scoring, value, and having a good start to the season.
I guess we're looking for a few things as well. This is probably revision for a lot of coaches, but we need job security in these rookies. I guess we're always looking at things like role and that, but sometimes job security is what we really want. They need to be able to play each and every week. It's no good bringing in a rookie. I mean, Sardell Hawley was like that perfect example last year, wasn't he? Of a guy that looked really promising, but he just couldn't hold his spot in the side. And so it was quite frustrating having to bring him in. We can't pick those rookies who are just playing for a week or two and then they're kind of out of the side. We want that fantasy-friendly role as well, which is why coaches this year are getting really excited about your Josh Lindsays and your Jacob Farrows and those guys who are coming in and they've got that chip off half back. That's sort of not only a fantasy-friendly role, but maybe a rookie-friendly role from a real-life perspective as well. If they have that role, they're going to make money faster for us. They're going to put up more points. And so that's going to really help us along. I suppose going back to last year, Isaac Kako.
The Kako debate.
the great Kako Smacko of 2025, and we talked about that preseason where, I saw him go off in that preseason game and I just went, this kid's electric. I got to pick him. And you were like, don't be fooled. But I was fooled. And you chose Max Hall, I think it was. And I chose Isaac Kako, and egg on my face. He's a small forward. That is not the role that we want in fantasy footy. And I guess kind of related to that role as well, we want to look for these players who have that high scoring base as well. And by high scoring base in rookies, like, what would you say, 50, no less than 50 is kind of what we want. But, getting closer to that 60 is really ideal.
And depending where their price point is, I mean, if we're talking about a Dersma who's up around 3, I don't know what he is because he's not in my team, but he's expensive. He's got to be over 350K. You want them scoring as opposed to a 230K rook with the same job security. He may have had a couple of years under his belt, maybe a mid-season draft recruit. Then the scoring can have those little discrepancies. But overall, yes, you want above that 55 points of scoring. Between the 55 and 65.
And you want to be able to prioritize, I guess, or be able to, I think Taser was talking about on their pod today, on the Fantasy Fanatics pod, about like, you want to try and be able to see the patterns. And, ideally you want that 55 scoring rookie on your bench and you want that 65 or 70 scoring rookie on your field, which hopefully is what we're going to be able to help out with today.
Yeah, and there's been some different strategies. So on X, there's been a number of team structures that I've had a look at and that I played with around in the past. And I know when I started my fantasy journey, it was the guns and rooks approach. So a team structure where a coach fills their side with proven premiums, underpriced premiums, and rookies, and there wasn't much else in between. And although your premiums were scoring well, you had so many of these rookies that the percentage of all of them scoring well and making money was relatively low. So I remember not being able to complete my team until around 22, 23, if ever, if I had injuries that I had to deal with. So it was really difficult to get that cash generation when you have so many rookies that are on your starting side, but also on your bench. And that's where I think this value approach has crept in for the last 3 years.
Yeah, so we've got that value approach, right? Where we look for the underpriced premiums and we look for those mid-price players primarily. And they're the guys that we want populating our field. We're not going for those super top end of the line guys because we need to make sure that every pick that we've got has value in it, whether that be in the points, in the money, etc. And I suppose this is where it really deviates, isn't it? Because instead of having, say, 3 or 4 rookies in your midfield, you want to try and turn 2 of them into these mid-price players. So limiting those number of rookies on your field to avoid those floor scores that can really derail your entire fantasy week. And this comes back to what we were kind of saying earlier. It's like you want those best rookies on your bench. If you can limit the number of rookies on your field, you can then also prioritize who are going to be the best cash generators and stick them on your bench so that you're getting the most out of their upside without having to rely on them to put points on the board for you each week.
Yeah, and how often do I quote Selby, who says, just get your rookies off the field, get them off the field because they're young and they're going to put up these lower scores. And so in the lead to this pod, doing my research about what my team was looking like, I didn't like the number of first-year rookies that started to creep in, and I had to go back to my learning. So I guess deep diving into what the last 3 years have looked like in terms of high scoring rookies, job security, what clubs do they go to? I really classified the different categories of rookies that we can look at. And so I guess our traditional sense is we look at these top 25 draft picks from that previous year that look like they've got a high chance of end talent playing each week, going to these lesser clubs where we think there's going to be opportunity. And it just so happens that in the last 5 years, we've had these once-in-generational talents, your Sheasel, your Nakos, Ashcroft, McKercher, Harley Reid, and they're more expensive. So we really pay up for these top 25 draft picks. So I guess that's where a lot of the coaches in the AFL fantasy competition look to first. But there's other categories of rookie that probably have more of my interest, which is where we did the research in the last couple of weeks. So your second and third year players who have been training in the system for the last 2 years haven't quite cracked it, but now through development, expert coaching, building upon fitness, components of fitness, that they finally cracked this best 22 or 23 scenario. So they're a different category of rookie that I've been looking for in the last couple of years. The emergence of the mid-season draft, so we're suddenly having the opportunity to bring in mature age rookies halfway through a season. Tom McCarthy is your classic example from last year. Older, perhaps been taken out of a waffle, a sandful that can really complement, and they're hardened. They've got years of playing in those competitions against men. So they've already built up those capabilities. And then we have these really cheap, experienced players that perhaps coming back from injury or a change of club. And I guess your Dev Rob, we probably won't classify him as a rookie, but he's been playing VFL for so many years now in the Lions system. With the opportunity he has, he's now at basement price with the West Coast Eagles. So I just think it's more to it than just thinking about our top 25 draft picks.
100%. And I think if I can just tack one thing onto the end of that is that, you know, I feel like these top 20 draft picks every year we kind of look at them and we go, oh, okay, well, on sheer talent alone, they should be really, really good. But we need to remember that these guys, most of the time, outside of your Nick Dacos, who is, goes to Collingwood, outside of an Ashcroft, outside these father-son or academy picks, for the most part, these top 10 guys, they go to the worst teams. And so they're going to be fueled by the worst engine room in the competition, or bottom 5 engine room in the competition. And I remember, even though we'll look at this later, but I know like Harley Reid, when we look back on it, actually had a pretty good rookie year from a fantasy perspective. But I remember all of us collectively in the fantasy community, while we were watching Harley Reid put scores on our fields, I remember a little bit of like, this guy should have been better than this. But again, he went to West Coast. And so I'm really excited about this because, I like your thesis here that there is somewhere else we can shop than that top end, very expensive talent.
Well, think about it. They're, 17, 18 years of age, coming out of school footy. Have they got the body to meet the demands of AFL, especially if you've got a Harley Reid who's suddenly in a midfield? So he's playing week in, week out against hardened men. Is his fitness up for it? Can his body sustain the knocks every single week? The mental side of the game, it's a lot to put on these first-year players. And if you've got a fantasy team full of them, it's really going to be difficult for all of those to outscore their price consistently from week to week. And you raised 2 names, Nakos and Ashcroft. What do you reckon they were training 2 years in the lead up to the draft? Because I know Ashcroft was training with the Lions.
Yeah.
Nakos has been with that Collingwood club since he was 5 years old. These guys have been training for 2 years in an AFL system, even though they were part of that particular draft.
Such a good point. Such a good point. We talk about the importance of like one preseason, let alone these guys who are who's the like Carlton have their his name is slipping my mind, but their up and coming rookie who's a father, he's training with them already. So it happens all throughout the comp with these guys. Should we get on to the data? Should we get on to the main event for the people
let's get into it. And we were plugging this idea for maybe a month now, just to give a bit more detail about rookies. We always talk about that rookies are really hard to predict, and until teams are released do we get that assurances that they're potentially going to have job security. And we did reach out to Vams, who did have some fantastic data. He's done something similar, and we're just adding on to the brilliant work that he has done. And Jaden Popowski have got the data from previous rookie drafts and the percentages. So these are the type of things we wanted to unpack. It was going to be, well, from our last 3 years of high averaging rookies, which ones were top 20, 25 draft picks from that previous year? Which ones were those second and third year, I guess, breakout rookies? I won't say breakout players, but those breakout rookies who have cracked their side. Which ones were the mature age rookies that you pick up from mid-season draft? Lawson Humphreys, for example, was 2 years in the waffle before Geelong picked him up. And which of those just cheaper experienced players, whether it's due to injury, discount, or shift of club coming from the VFL, and they're able to get a crack. So I'll let you kick it off, mate. You looked at the 2024 season, and you've got some really interesting data here.
Yeah, so you tasked me with going away, looking at the 2024 guys, and really what was interesting that came out of this was there's probably like 6 names that are sort of worthy of true discussion, because I think there are 3 categories here. There's the generational talents and the known guns who probably, when I rattle off their names and how they went, no one's going to be very surprised. There's a bunch of guys who, will probably, some will go on to have fantastic careers despite not a great first fantasy season. Others will probably fizzle. And then there's these mature age guys who are maybe the ones that we're most excited about. So what we did is we measured, the 3 point stats that we looked at were I think, as you said, the overall score and then the before and the after. So that's what I'm going to rattle off at the moment. There's a few names and then those scores. So we had the obvious names. Harley Reid, he was a generational talent, or considered a generational talent. He averaged 66 on the season, 65 before the bye, 68 after the bye. Nothing crazy there. Kind of did what we expected in that West Coast system. Was a relatively successful pick, if not lighting the house on fire for our teams. We had George Wardlaw, who did pretty similarly. He averaged 65 on the year, 64 before, 65 after the bye. Then we had our Colby McKercher, who I don't think anyone was talking about as like a generational talent, but certainly was touted as a gun player.
Top pick.
Right?
Yep.
He averaged 82 on the season, 73 before the bye, and 94 after the bye. So he was outstanding, particularly once they found the role that kind of suited him. These are those names that fit into that first category. Generational talents, known guns. We're not surprised to see these. And so, this, I suppose, these names reinforce that it's not that there's not merit to selecting a Willem Dersma or a Zeke Euland. But you want to make sure you get it right, because there were other high picks who maybe didn't score quite as well. Out of those three names, though, I would say only one of them we would consider a truly fantastic rookie selection, and that's Colby McKercher. The second category was just a bunch of guys, and these are guys who I'm not even going to talk about. They didn't really do much for us from a fantasy perspective. So these next three names, these are the names, I think they're more interesting because they're either more mature aged or they're players who had experience in the twos, in the Sandful, the Waffle, or the VFL. So we had Sean Manor, who at the time was 26 years old. It boggles my mind that we would consider him, a 28-year-old, to be really old for AFL, and I'm like 3 years older, and I'm just sitting here on my couch being all judgmental. But anyway, he averaged 75 on the year. Now, he averaged 34 before the bye. Rubbish. But that was, I believe, only off a handful of games or less. But he averaged 82 after the bye, once he settled, once he found that role. Logan Evans, he played Sandful for 6 months. So he wasn't 26, he was a young guy, but he played Sandful for 6 months prior. And so he didn't play before the bye, but he averaged 69 points after the bye, including finals.
So he was a mid-season draft pickup, wasn't he?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Mid-season draft pickup, which is what allowed him to get that extra experience that maybe some of these other draftees straight out of the draft, straight into the AFL system didn't get. And then Lawson Humphreys. So he spent between 21 and 2023 in the VFL with Geelong. He averaged 72 on the season, didn't play before, so that average came from after the preseason bye, mid-season bye. And so I guess the key thing here is that, yes, we had Colby McKercher, but outside of Colby McKercher, the guys who averaged the best, the rookies who averaged the best were the mature-aged ones or the ones with much more experience in that club system or in the twos, comparatively to, say, George Wardlaw and a Harley Reid, who are arguably two of the better rookies that came out of that year as well.
Yeah, and we were talking pre-recording that we had a look at that top 10 list, didn't we? And pick 5, pick 3, pick 4. So we're talking names like Nick Watson, Jed Walter, Dersma. They just didn't have the ability to hit those heights. And I guess reinforces the point that although some of these first-year rookies are going to be good, depending on system, coaching, that large majority of them, it's really hard week in, week out, as we said earlier, to crack those scores. And that can potentially stall the cash generation of your team. And I go back to my example in 2023. 2025 was very similar. I'm going to rattle off some names, mate, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind. So these were the top pre-buy scores in terms of average. Levi Ashcroft, 75 pre-buy. Sam Davidson, 73. Hugo Garcia, 64. Ned Long, 81. Ryan Marrick, 73. Riley Bice, 67. Mitch Nevitt, 60. Max Hall, 58. And Dan Curtin was a 59. And I've got a couple of, no, I'll save the special mentions, but what can you tell me about those high averaging players pre-buy?
Levi Ashcroft, generational talent, allegedly, well, is. Sam Davidson, old. Hugo Garcia, old. Ned Long, older. Ryan Marrick, old. Riley Bice, Mitch Nevitt, Max. They're all guys who were drafted previously.
Yep. Older recruits. So Davidson was taken as a mature rookie. Hugo Garcia had a couple of years, was drafted 2 years earlier. Ned Long was drafted in 2021 and was picked up by Collingwood. Ryan Marrick had a couple of years in the system, 9 games in his first year, then was able in his third year to hit those heights. Riley Bice, we know that the Sydney Swans picked him up, basement rookie for fantasy coaches. Mature age, Mitch Nevitt, those who started with the Mitch Nevitt and were brave to start with the Mitch Nevitt. Again, elder, elk. Max Hall had a couple of years under his belt. And even Dan Curtin, injury affected, but he had 2 years in the AFL. He had 2 pre-season AFLs under his belt. And some special mentions. So we had Reed from Essendon, was obviously affected by injury. Pretty much you'd have to say 98% of the competition started with the Reed, was priced at 22 due to his injury. And then we saw Tom McCarthy come in as a mid-season draft at West Coast, who averaged 83.5. So these are the areas I want to look at and really think about in terms of starting my side this year. I mean, Levi Ashcroft, we talked about, not just a generational talent, but he'd been training with the Lions for 12 months. He knew their system. His brother has been there as well. So we've got these hardened rookies that I think there's a really clear correlation between that and having this fantasy scoring potential, especially in your starting side. If you can kickstart the job security, all those characteristics you rattle off, job security, being able to make money, having the role, and being able to sustain AFL footy from week to week. In comparison, as you said, we still had these 2024 first-year players. So Xavier Lindsay, 57, got injured, unfortunately, first year out. Harvey Langford, who started really well, then was pushed out to a wing. Sam Layla only lasted 11 matches until there was some serious injury with a 59. Sid Draper got injured. Foss, only 46 pre-buy, and Trainer, he was probably the star 2024 draftee with 57 pre-buy average at Richmond. So we talk about those bodies, there's some injuries there, and that's what I'm concerned about, the inconsistency with the scoring, but also we seem to have a large percentage of injuries to these first-year players.
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's a really good point. Like, I hadn't probably considered as deeply as you had before you said it. And then it kind of clicked for me and made sense. This idea of, these younger guys, they just haven't got it's not stamina necessarily. It's not even necessarily fitness, but withstanding a contact sport from these men who have been playing this sport for a really long time is a very different ball game to withstanding that kind of beating from someone, much younger and your size. And so definitely something to be considered. And it makes you nervy about selecting these much more expensive top end guys as well, to go, okay, well, like, look at Sam Lawler. Like, I started with Sam Lawler last year.
Yep.
Looking at that, to kind of get 11 matches at not the best scoring before he kind of breaks down, you go, well, I'm paying top dollar for that player. That's a problem. And, if someone's going to, you don't want that much money to be kind of, theoretically biting you later.
And I guess before we move into what's the opportunity this year, these were probably the takeaways from, I guess, 2 to 4 years of data. So we were looking at players from various draft years. It seems it's very hard for these first-year players to score consistently week in, week out, whether it's due to being in a bad system, a team that's finished lower in the table from the previous year, the injuries they seem to sustain, as we talked about, the rigors, the physical rigors of AFL footy, the workload. They've come from, we talked about, schoolboy footy into a draft combine, and then suddenly full-on pre-seasons. I'm sure they manage their workloads, but the increase in workload, but also the attention. Imagine being a top 10 draft pick, playing against a Geelong, playing against a Collingwood, playing against these top 8 sides, they're going to have attention. They're going to know the quality of these top round picks. Other trends with these mid-season draft players that we seem to pluck from various domestic comps, they've got that hardened footy under their belt. So whether that enables them to sustain or work through injuries, workloads, and these mature age rookies like your Davidson, 24 years of age, suddenly he's playing on the wing and he can meet the demands of AFL footy. And the other interesting takeaway was a lot of these first-year picks, they score better in the second half of the year. They do come back after a break mid-season, and then they can click into gear because they are good players. They're top 25 draft picks. But we looked at it, and the percentage of those players, pretty much all of them scored better in that second half of the year as opposed to the first half of the year.
Okay, so I guess the question remains, how do we've got all this data, we've got all these ideas, how do we use it to help us this year in terms of our selections or making the most out of our salary cap?
Yeah, so if we go dot point each, I mean, the first one for mine was, as I said, I put my team out on X this week, and it got a bit of attention because probably 3 weeks ago, I just felt I'd slipped into 2023 mode, and I had too many of these first-year players: Dersma, Hewland, Annabelle, Sharp, Farrow, Lindsay. And I think this data confirms that I need to start thinking elsewhere. So that's one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah. I suppose the next one is, what does that leave on our bench? Do we need to go deeper into our lines? We need to find these cheap value guys, the experienced guys that sit kind of just above that rookie price. We talked about this last year with guys like Mitch Nevitt, Hugo Garcia, these players that kind of stuck out to us. We're looking at, like a Lockie Blackiston in our defensive line this year. Other names this year that kind of stand out in that category. You've got Brody, you've got Coleman, you've got Jamara Ugelhagen, Devrob, although Devrob very, very cheap, rookie priced. So we want these guys, we want these better rookies kind of sitting on our bench, making our money for us while we can rely on perhaps these better scores on our field.
Well, that's it. If we're picking all of these players and they're in a starting lineup, well, who's sitting on your bench? And suddenly we've got this extra pool of rookies that are going to have to make money. And we talked about that guns and rooks approach, that's so many rookies that have to score. And if we can negate the amount that we have by picking some of these older players and have these guns sitting on your bench and making coin in that capacity, I think that's what we can do. And, previous years, the Dempseys, the Nevitts, it's now having a lens on these mid-season draft players, mature age rookies, and perhaps these 2 to 3 year players who have suddenly cracked best 23.
Yeah, I love it. Have we got, I guess what the people want to know now, right?
Yeah.
Is who can we pick? Who are the names?
Well, I guess these are the options, right? We pay up for the 2025 draft crop, Dersma, Hewland, Annabelle, and we have them on field. I've seen crazy teams where there's 5 to 6 of them, their starting lineup. So it almost is going back to this guns and rooks approach, and that concerns me. But it is an option for this year. I guess the other concern is this was meant to be one of the worst draft crops in the last 5 years. So why are we now banking 5 to 6 of these players and spending all that money when we don't know whether they're going to get the scoring output and sustain footy from week to week? The other option is we start searching for these second, third, or maybe even fourth year breakout rookies, not breakout players, breakout rookies with the role. So your Max Hall equivalent, so a la Davidson, Riley Bice, where are the players for 2026 with those characteristics? And I guess to do that, we might need a pay cut at the top and find these uber cheap value guys and have deeper lines so that we can get these best rookies on the bench. So what do? What are these players? What stands out this year, my man? Rattle some of these off.
Well, look, if I read these names out to you, can you give me an idea of like how you feel about each of them and how they fit this kind of data set that we've got here?
Yep.
So we've got like a Jacob Newton who's kind of, people have started talking about him now from West Coast. We've got a Lockie Blackiston from Essendon, and, he seems to be taking that number one ruck role. And then we've got a Rowan Steele from Collingwood, who is a very interesting name, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on those guys.
Well, two of them are already in my side. So I've got
Love
Jacob
it.
Newton sitting in my forward bench, and I've got Lockie Blackiston sitting at D6 at the moment. 27 years of age, solo ruck. For that, hitting that rookie price category, he is straight in. Jacob Newton, I'd love to see if he gets some pracky match time, and if so, 2024 undrafted, was playing in the Sandful, gone to West Coast, and I think playing in the Sandful for that amount of time, it fits that characteristic or that mold we were talking about. And Rowan Steele, 24 years old, Collingwood, they've lost some depth. If he's playing in the practice matches and if he's announced in opening round, then I think he could be a smoky at rookie-based price. Then it's thinking about a 2024 and 2023 draftee. So Jagger Smith, although injured, I think he's going to be in everyone's side, but that's 2 pre-seasons now. So he is the second-year rookie that we're talking about. And how lucky are we? Well, not lucky. As fantasy coaches, we get him at basement price. Josh Smiley, I'm looking at, I think he's slightly injured, but again, he has the 2 pre-seasons under his belt. What do you think of this name? 2023 draftee Zane Dersma from North Melbourne. A wing position.
Yeah.
But again, this is the player I'm looking at in terms of your Nevitt equivalent long, just a couple of years under his belt.
He's an interesting one. He makes me a bit nervy because he's gone 36 in 2024 and 31. Like, what do we think he needs to do? Like, do we see a role change, or do we think, is it just this natural progression thing? He's got a couple of years in the system now, and so naturally it makes sense to pick him over one of these first-year guys. He's got that hardened body now. He's maybe up to the AFL standard.
I think it's
an interesting one.
I think it's both of those points. I think he's going to get more opportunity. I think he's got more confidence. I mean, he is a Dersma, so think about the pressure of being in that family and perhaps where he fit in AFL for the last 2 seasons. So, look, I'm not saying this is a lock, but these are the areas that I'm going to look for. And another player who's actually in my side at the moment is Harvey Harrison, 22 years old from the 2021 draft, 300K. So suddenly I'm paying 50K less. He's sitting in my forward line, and he's a 22-year-old that could fit again into a Collingwood system and has had a really good preseason.
I suppose the other point here is that this is kind of what you got to do as a AFL Fantasy Classic coach, isn't it? Is you've got to find a way to differentiate your team from the masses. Last year we talked about the idea of like a 24th premium. This year came up. We talked about looking at how do players, what's a player's score profile at stoppage rather than just simply how many stoppages do they attend. We've talked about all these different things. This is kind of like another area where you can look to and go, okay, not everyone is choosing a Harvey Harrison. Not everyone is choosing a Rowan Steele or a Zane Dersma. But maybe if I can pick 1 or 2 of these guys to put in my team where most coaches won't, then if it pays off, they'll be playing catch up later. And so I guess that's kind of what you got to do, isn't it? You've got to be bold, be brave, and just kind of trust your process and take a dive into the deep.
Yep. And once again, we get to look at 10 teams in opening round. 10 teams. So if Harvey Harrison opening round comes out with a 65 to 70, then it's just going to confirm a bit of that research. If Lockie Blackiston is solo ruck and he can pop a score, actually, I don't know if Essendon's playing opening round, but in practice matches, if we can see that he is solo ruck and he's competing really well at the age of 27, a big body, age 27, then he's certainly going to confirm the research at the moment. And again, if a Jacob Newton is continuing on with the rep that he's got in those pracky matches, then it just validates these options as opposed to just loading up on these first-year rookies.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How many of those top end first year rookies do you have in your team currently? Do you have any, or have you got, or none, or none?
I have Annabelle.
Yep.
I'm going to have to get out of this mock draft I just did. Isn't that addictive? Mock drafts.
You were telling me the other night, you should have seen me. You should have seen me a couple of years ago in NFL. Like it was like July. You know, it was like 3 months before the season started. I was like mock drafting 3 hours a day. Shocking.
Okay, so starting side, I have Annabelle, Sharp. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Jagger Smith is on my field.
Yeah.
I have on my bench Lindsay from West Coast, Farrow.
Mm-hmm.
But I got Newton on the bench. I got Dev Robb on the bench. I got Harvey Harrison sitting in my utility. I've taken a bit of a haircut up the top.
I mean, I've got
Blackiston. Sorry, Blackiston's my D6.
I've just opened my app to look at my team to see what my spread looks like, and it's not my team. It's one of the secret teams that we're going to reveal.
Later on.
And so I can't actually. I can't. Well, I think there's like a Dyson Sharp and a Dan Annable. Funnily enough, though, they're on the bench of this team, so that'll be fun to talk about later. Yeah, no, sorry, thanks for that. I think that's interesting. So only 2 of those kind of top end rookie guys that are currently in your team. No Zeke Euland, no Willem Dersma to currently be found.
And that's the beauty of these early season buys and using opening round through to round 5 as fix-up trades. Those fix-up trades are getting those rookies. Get them in your side. Remove the ones that aren't going to make that cash and start that cadence. You bring in these guys that are. So that's the other point as well, is using your early buys to fix up those rookies.
Love it. We done? Is that it?
Yeah, that was fun. That was cool.
That was fun. Like it. Love it. We're done, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, give us a follow. Contest Fantasy Footy Show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You give us I've already told you to give us a 5-star rating, so I'm going to be quiet about that. You can follow me on Twitter at Contest Fantasy, and you can follow K-Man on Twitter at K-Man_TC Fantasy. We got some exciting episodes coming your way. This week we have our second mock draft, and we've got a couple of guests on that one too. We've got. Can I announce it? Can I announce the guests?
Yeah, why not?
We got Big Bales coming onto the show.
Yes,
for a mock draft with us.
That's
and
awesome.
We're joined again by Matt from the Draft Bible as well, who's going to come back. Very, very exciting. And then we've got another guest the following week, but I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that one. Yeah, just give you a little trickle.
Something.
Have we got the music or?
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's funny. What can I say? You know, I've been pondering life lately. It's a long meandering trail through the fields of football, all the way to the end.
It's creeping me out.
I'm really just trying to get to the drop. See ya.